Oh, they're YouTube. Wait, really on YouTube? Let's find out. Let's see it. Should be. Yeah, there we go. It's live now. So let's just warm things up a little bit. Not going to push the button to make that play. That would just make a endless loop of me talking. So warm up YouTube a little bit, gather an audience. Oh, look, we're starting it right at 8 o'clock. You see? Can't see the clock. There we go. 8 o'clock on the nose. Almost as if that's when this show goes on. And oh, hey, look. look what popped up in my YouTube feed. A show. You know, you could be notified when there is a new show, and a live show. YouTube would ping your phone and let you know we're on, so that you could stop everything you're doing and come watch the show. You can do that, aren't you? So how do you do that? I think somewhere around here is subscribe. I don't see it. It's around here somewhere. Am I looking at? Yeah, maybe this my channel. That's what I'm seeing. I guess I'm looking at it as the guy who owns this thing. Maybe I can't subscribe to my own show. Somewhere on YouTube, there's a subscribe button, and then there's a little bell thing. And if you click that, you get notified when there's a show. In settings, somewhere deep in settings, it'll tell your phone. I guess. That seems to be happening with my phone some. That would be cool. we amped this thing up enough. We gathered an audience of tens of thousands. Somehow I don't think so. But, I cleverly cued the music, and then I didn't have the volume turned up for it. So let's try this again. From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary at the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the Triangle Talk Show. And we are at episode... Pushed a button with my thumb. We're episode 63. It's going to be a choice type episode. Saturday, July 6th, 2019. The title is Ssshhharlotte. Yeah, that's like Ssshhharlotte. People that are watching, I'm doing the shush thing with my finger over my mouth. Yes, I have shushed an entire city. I've shushed the entire city of Charlotte. Let's see. I'm Gary Pierce. I'm going to be a choice pro for this episode. And the Triangle Talk Show is a podcast, and it's a YouTube show. It's for the Triangle area of North Carolina and beyond. We cover anything we want to, with a pretty significant lean to the left. Lean to the left. Some progressive politics. It's not all politics. For example, Toy Story 4. Yeah, it was okay, I guess. Kind of over the Toy Story thing. Cindy and I we went to see it the other day, and she said, "Well, what did you think?" And I went, kind of, it's okay. The story just kind of keeps repeating, one movie after another. I won't spoil it for you though. If you love this Toy Story, it was worth going to see. We didn't regret having spent the time and the $10. Mine is a little less because I get the senior discount. So, go see Toy Story 4 if you like the Toy Stories. And that is the mini review. Website for the show is triangletalkshow.com. We've got a Facebook group. It is also named the Triangle Talk Show. On Twitter, the rare time when I ever do anything on Twitter, it is at Talk Triangle, because I didn't know how to run Twitter when I signed it up. I still don't. And on YouTube, continue to be ashamed to admit that we haven't hit the 100 subscriber mark that will let us get to the URL, the custom URL that says Triangle Talk Show. So for now, just go to the website, triangletalkshow.com, and click the YouTube link, and that'll get you there. And then please subscribe and hit the bell if you want. We are halfway there as of today with 50 subscribers. And now, on with the show. Last week, not this last week that we just concluded, the week before that, the Charlotte City Council passed an amendment to the city's noise ordinance. It's effective October 1st, and the noise ordinance would prohibit amplified sound or any unreasonably loud sound within 150 feet of, I need to see a little bit more of my web thing here, within 150 feet of the property lines of schools, churches, and other places of worship, or healthcare facilities, and other stuff. The other stuff affected would be commercial establishments like restaurants and bars that have outdoor music. But that's not what I'm focusing on this program. And it's not what any of the people who attended and spoke at the Charlotte City Council meeting last week or so, it's not what they were focused on either. They were focused on healthcare facilities, and more specifically, abortion clinics. The bottom line, at least for these people, is that the Charlotte City Council amended their noise ordinance to reduce the sound volume of anti-abortion protests that occur pretty much whenever those clinics are open. And so over the next hour, maybe a little less, I'm not going to count on less, I'm going to play you about 5 minutes of video and sound that I recorded, that was recorded, I didn't record it, that was recorded outside one of the Charlotte abortion clinics. And then I'm going to play you another 5 minutes that I recorded outside one of the clinics here in Raleigh. It's the clinic where I volunteer as an escort several days a week. I think that 10 minutes will be about all you can stand of what's going on there. Maybe more than you can stand. But understand that when this is happening, now it's mostly on Saturday mornings here in Raleigh, could be just about any day of the week in Charlotte, as I understand it. When this is happening, it lasts for hours, nonstop. And I think it's important to understand that most of the anti-abortion protesters, man, there can be well over 100 of them, sometimes several hundred of them. Most of them aren't amplified. They aren't even yelling. Most of them are silent, standing in the background. Maybe they're quietly praying. Sometimes they're singing. It's just a few, just a handful, who are either yelling or using a PA system or both to boom their voices at the women and their companions who are entering and leaving the clinic. The loudest ones can be heard inside. It's a dull roar, but it's constant and it can be stressful. And sometimes they're saying some pretty vile, ugly things. Well, you'll see. Okay, so 5 minutes of Charlotte, 5 minutes of Raleigh. After that, I'm going to play about a half hour of pretty tightly edited comments from the public at that Charlotte City Council meeting last week-ish. There were over 100 people registered to speak at that meeting, and this is the meeting where they were going to vote on their noise ordinance. So there's over 100 people that were registered to speak at that meeting. The vast majority of them were anti-abortion protesters. And it went on for well over 2 hours, even though everyone who spoke was limited to just 1 minute. As I understood it, normally when the public are making comments before the city council, everybody gets 3 minutes or 2 minutes, depending on how many people there are. But there were so many people there this time. They all got just 1 minute, and it still took over 2 hours. And so, again, what I've put together for you is edited to just a half hour. Now, before I play the video of the protesters, I want to say that I understand that there are some serious First Amendment implications here. I'm a big First Amendment advocate, of course. You do a podcast, an opinion podcast, you want to be able to talk about what you want to be able to talk about. And when you hear these guys in a minute, you may find yourself wanting to shut them up. Well, we can't do that. There are some limits on what they can say and what they can't say. And without getting technical about it, because I'm not qualified to get technical about it, I will generalize that they can't make direct threats to people. They can't incite violence. But they can say what you'll hear them say. That's free speech. And note that the Ssshhharlotte ordinance does not shut them up. The ordinance we'll talk about. It doesn't prohibit them from standing on the edge of the clinic property line. Of course, they can't come onto the clinic property, and they can't block clients from coming and going. That's part of something called the FACE Act, and I'm not going to go into detail on that here, but it's a federal law that's been around for a while, protecting access to medical clinics. And since almost nobody protests it when you want to go get a colonoscopy, mostly we're talking about abortion clinics. What the protesters can do is stand on the edge of the property and try to talk to people. They can probably even yell some. And right now, it's hard to say because the ordinance prohibits any sound so unreasonably loud because of its volume that it unreasonably disturbs, injures, or endangers the health, peace, or safety of patients in the facility. Well, that's language from the new ordinance. The ordinance was passed, by the way. No spoilers here. It was passed at that meeting. Takes effect October 1st, plus or minus any court battles that it has to go through. Okay, so prohibits not only the amplified sound, but anything so unreasonably loud that it disturbs, injures, or endangers the health, peace, or safety of patients in the facility. And that is all within the 150 feet from the perimeter. Outside of that, not anything goes, but amplification can go. Okay, so that unreasonably loud stuff, well, that's going to be a judgment call. And the protesters are complaining about that judgment call for sure. So what they can't do, after October 1st is amplify their voices or otherwise get too loud within 150 feet of the property line. Okay, I think it's time to play some video. So again, this is going to be from Ssshhharlotte first, 5 minutes. It begins with a few clips from a recent documentary from a group called Rewire News. It is not what I wanted to do. Try this again. Okay, I got to be over here.
We're shining the light.
Stop. Trying to control my system here. Okay, so it's from a group called Rewire News. The documentary is titled Care in Chaos. And I'll have a link to it on the Triangle Talk Show website. It's about a half-hour documentary. The rest of the footage that you'll see is taken by escorts and clinic staff, and some of it's even from the protesters themselves. Okay, so here's 5 minutes of hell from Ssshhharlotte. And if you want the complete experience, turn up the volume. Let's see how much you can take.
Light of truth to wake you up and to shine your way out of the burning building that you're in called sin. Because there is a great God in heaven that loves you. Mama, you've got to realize that you need him. You've got to realize where your life is headed. You had friends or family members that had abortions. You said, I'll never do that. But yet you got in a situation.
And you're worthy of the praise.
All right.
Hallelujah, Lord. Bless you, Jesus.
Have you
They
been
hate
pregnant?
that
Are you
we're
a
out here.
doctor?
They hate that we're offering you help. They hate the truth. They hate the truth. Jesus Christ said, light has come into the world. They kill babies. They poison them. They dismember them. And then they say, as they wipe their bloody hands across their lying mouths, we've done no evil, we've done nothing wrong. We're helping people by murdering their offspring.
Do you think they can help you? They can't help you. This is the scum of the earth right here. Child abusers. They should all be under arrest, facing the death penalty for murder.
No! It's murder! It's cold-blooded murder! Stop the murder! You'll both be murdered, and you'll both burn in hell. You'll burn in hell forever and ever.
Understand that what you've come to do is evil. It is a wicked abomination in the sight of God, and God will hold you accountable as a murderer. Doesn't matter what excuses you give. All your excuses are lies. There's no reason for this baby to be murdered. Whatever excuses you give, they're all lies. I don't care if you're in college. Who cares? If your education mattered to you, how'd you get pregnant? How'd that happen? You're not serious about your education. You're more serious about your party fornicating life. And if a baby has to die so you can keep living that whorish lifestyle, then a baby has to die. An educated murderer. So you'll get a degree one day and be what? Someone that's capable of murdering your own children? How is that good? How is that good? It's not good. These people are lying to you in there. If you're pregnant, you're already a mother. They're going to kill your baby. Please, we have help for you. Don't listen.
But you don't have to go through with that. There's still a choice. If you can hear the sound of this voice, we're calling for you to come out of that building. Make that decision before it's too late. Once you take away that life cannot be given. Once you commit the act of murder, that act cannot be undone. You will have emotional scars. You will have to live with the decision that you are about to make for the rest of your life. But you see, before they take you back there for that procedure, right now all you're doing is getting prep. You may be watching a movie. You may be watching them tell you how simple a procedure this is, that there's no chance that you could die. Let me tell you something. You're not only putting your baby's life in jeopardy of certain death, but you're putting your life in jeopardy. If nothing else, just for the sake of you fearing for your life, walk out of that building. You're willing to do what you want to kill the baby for your life. Well, I'm telling you that there's no simple procedure. Things can happen. Walk out of that building for your baby's sake.
There is one that has come to rob, to kill, and to destroy. He is the devil. He leads the whole world astray. And young lady, you're right out in front of the gates of hell. My prayer is that somehow you will bring Jesus right inside the gates of hell, for the gates cannot prevail against him. Young mama, we would be remiss if we did not speak the truth to you today. That there is a God in heaven who loves you and can take what you think is a curse and turn it into a wonderful blessing. What the devil is going to do is take your sin and exacerbate it by making you a murderer. That's right. The way that you're going to try and solve the problem of your sin is simply by murdering a child. That's right, violating the very sixth commandment of Almighty God. That's what's happening here today. Young lady, in Jesus' name, you don't need to go into that place. And if you love him, you won't. If you hate him, you will. That's your choice today. These are thieves. Thieves that care not one twit about a young lady, a young mother in a crisis situation. They just want her wallet. They want the MasterCard. They want to steal everything that they can from her because they're of their father, the devil, who has come to rob, to kill, and to destroy. Oh yes, that's the truth. You might say, well, that's judgmental. How could you say such a thing? Well, I'm not the judge. God is.
Okay. That last part was actually recorded in 2009, and so 10 years ago. And make that go away so it doesn't start to play again. Okay, got to do my housekeeping here. 2009, 10 years ago. This has been going on for decades. Not something that's brand new. You know, it occurs to me. Well, for one thing, that last guy, he was standing right on the edge of the property with his amplifier, his speaker, and his microphone. he could be heard inside. It occurs to me that some of the people watching this video may be among the few anti-abortion protesters who have found this show. The few people anywhere who have found this show. You guys may be cheering what you see. And if I believed in any gods, I would pray for your eternal soul. I don't believe in any gods. I have no idea if there are eternal souls or not. But if there are any of those things, then I suspect you are in big trouble. All right, this is a Google map of the clinic in Charlotte, their area. It's this building here, and for the audio audience, it's a small, relatively small building surrounded by a parking lot on a not very busy street. In a commercial area, right behind it is a residential area. It's not for the most part very consumer commercial. It's, business type commercial, but there's some consumer stuff. Looks like in the neighborhood, and it's a fairly quiet street. The parking lot is right on the street and surrounds the building on two sides. The driveway entrance is right there, and the guy that was protesting there at the end was standing right about here, right on the edge of the driveway. On weekends and sometimes during the week, the protesters will line this whole street. They'll fill the street. They're not allowed to block traffic in the street, but they'll be milling about. There is a small sidewalk. There are businesses on both sides. On the other side of the business to the south of the clinic, what you see on the Google map as forest has been cleared, and that territory was been leveled and has been made available to the protesters. So the protesters have to try to get a permit for sound amplification to run their sound, their amplifiers on the street in front of the clinic. They don't have to get any permit from private property. And so when they're on that private property, they can make all the noise they want. And now to give you an example, or maybe, to speculate a little bit about that 150 feet in the ordinance, because originally it was going to be 200 feet, and it was modified to 150 feet. If we look here at the edge of the clinic property, closest to that, what is now a leveled field, and do a measurement, the edge of that leveled field is 150 feet. If we had gone out to 200 feet, they would have lost most of that property. So maybe that's why it's 150 feet. In any case, it's a pretty good distance away from the property. And looking at it on the other end, get out to 150 feet or so, and they're down the block a significant amount. Let's see. I guess while we're looking at maps, let me take a look at the Raleigh area before we play their video. Give you some perspective. So this is the clinic in Raleigh. It's the building that's right in the middle of the screen right now. Let me fill up that screen. It's also another moderately sized building. It's on another, well, this one is a pretty quiet street. It's actually a traffic circle, and there are businesses around it, most of them not doing public commercial stuff. This clinic's parking lot wraps around the side of it and then around the back, but the protesters can stand right in front. So there's the edge of the driveway, and they can stand. There's no sidewalk here, but there is a public easement where anyone can be. And so they will occupy this spot right next to where cars are driving in. They'll occupy the space in front. There's a fence, so they can't see the clinic from the street in front, but they can holler from there. And And they're a lot closer, well, a little bit closer to this building than they are to the one in Charlotte. They also fill a space across the street on the little island in the middle of the traffic circle. Below the tree, they get some nice shade. So below that tree, they gather and they get a lot more of them there. That's where the protesters who are silently praying in the background are. The guys that are standing here at the edge of the driveway, they're the ones that are yelling and screaming. And these guys here are yelling into the fence. And can they be heard inside? Maybe a little bit, kind of a little buzz. If they're using amplification, they can be heard a little bit better. And when I play the video of those guys, then you'll hear what they sound like and who amplifies and who doesn't. Okay, so let me push a few more buttons and got the stage set for playing the Raleigh video. And are we ready to do that? Yeah, I think we are. Yep. Not as ready as I thought I was. Let's try this again.
Keep in mind, it's the life. Blood. Do you have bloody hands or bleeding heart? Do you have bloody hands or bleeding heart? You have bloody hands. You know why? Because
okay, so there's the quiet protesters in the background just doing their praying. And our loud guys in front.
Don't take that post. Don't allow that weapon of mass destruction to enter into your body and destroy all the black children don't. Young lady, turn around and go home.
Keeping company with the KKK. Right. You cannot make it without hope. Look at the hope of a child. You can ask them, hey, son, daughter, what do you want to be when you're older? And they'll say stuff like, I want to be an astronaut or a lawyer or a zookeeper, because they have hope. What happened to your hope? What have you settled for?
They're
How
not
have
human.
You squandered your life?
They're not human.
I want you to know that for the believer, even when things seem hopeless, we still have hope. When we are sick, we know that things will be fine. When our loved ones pass, we know that everything is going to be okay. We are not overturned and destroyed by life. We don't seek out the most desperate things in society to make ourselves feel better. We are comforted because we have the hope of eternity. We always have hope that sustains us. Where is your hope?
H-O-P-E.
The Bible was compiled that we might have hope because Christ never disappoints. We have peace in Christ. Where's
Peace
your
in
peace?
Jesus.
None of you have peace.
Where's that cross at?
None of you have
It
peace.
says she knows about Jesus.
Where is it?
They don't care about you. We care. We care about you. Come on out. Let that baby live. Jesus loves you.
Jesus loves you and your baby.
And your baby.
What is your baby's name?
What's your baby's name, Mom?
My baby's name was Hannah. My son's name is Joshua. What is your beautiful princess name? What is your son's name? Mommy. Daddy. How old is your baby?
How old is your baby?
Is it 3 weeks? Is it 2 months? How old is your baby?
How old is your baby?
Don't allow anything or anybody to tell you that you cannot do this.
Protect your baby, Mommy.
Trust in the Lord. There's a reason.
Trust
He's
in the Lord.
To hear us. There's a reason that we're here on June.
Jesus
Don't
sent
let
us
the
here to you.
sonogram be the last picture you see of your baby. Look at your baby's picture.
God is saying to you, if you have no help, I am your help. God is saying to you, if you don't see your deliverance, I am your deliverance.
He will deliver you.
God is saying to you, if you don't see life, I am your life.
God will provide.
I will help you in the midst of your trouble. God
Jesus will
says,
help you.
God is willing and able to help you at your point of need, mother.
Jesus will help you,
weddings. You don't have to fear.
Preacher!
This is the truth of God. This old guy here wants to videotape me here again because they want to try to.
Okay, so what I want to show you here is how far you can hear this guy's little pathetic amplifier. So in a moment, I'm going to walk away from him and walk back about 115 feet. Not 150, but 115.
But whoever's hearing this, I hope you're hearing the truth. And I hope you repent to God.
Yeah.
Because you're a sinner too. And you need to repent of your sins.
I will. So now I'm going to walk back. The volume you hear on TV, well, that's adjustable. I can adjust it. You can adjust it. What we'll show is you can hear him 115 feet away.
They listen to liars. They listen to false teachers who are crippling our world in our country, saying that yourself is more important than anything else. That you can have it your way. But you know what? Your parents allowed you to live, and they've already probably made some sacrifices to do so too. How can you be so selfish to deny that same right to your child?
Okay, I'm 115 feet away from the guy. And here's the largest group we see. And they are amplified, but they're not screaming right now. From time to time, they will start to preach from there and to shout from there. And that can get very loud. All right. Let's see, a little bit more. A little bit more work for some housekeeping work, and we can get back to the show. So I guess that pretty well sets the stage. Again, everything you've seen is protected by the First Amendment. First Amendment guarantees your right to speak. It doesn't guarantee that anyone is going to listen, and it doesn't say that you can turn up the volume until people are forced to listen. I actually searched for some cases where noise ordinances met the First Amendment. I didn't find any. All right, I didn't spend hours looking. It's a quick search, but it just doesn't look like that stuff has reached the Supreme Court. But as you'll hear when I play the video from the Charlotte City Council meeting, their legal staff has done their research, and they think they've got an ordinance that will stand up to the inevitable court challenge. And, well, we'll see. So let's head on down to Charlotte. Now, I did attend I did drive down there to attend the meeting. I got there a couple of hours before the meeting started, and the protesters, most of them are from this group called Love Life. Most of the protesters were already arriving. The meeting was scheduled for 6:30. These guys filled the lobby well before that, and this is a panoramic view from my camera, and people were moving. So at the seams, it did some weird things to people's faces. The folks with weird faces, they don't really look like that, but it's kind of interesting. So the Love Life people, you can see them in their teal T-shirts. These folks here in the white, those are mostly from the pro-choice contingent. And the Love Life folks, they pretty much filled the lobby well before the 6:30 meeting. You recognize those shirts from the tail end of the video from Raleigh. Those folks singing, they're all the Love Life folks. And I think you saw them scattered about in the Charlotte video too. They don't have any trouble rounding up a few hundred members for a good protest. Now, I didn't actually get into the city council chambers to watch the meeting, even though I was one of the first people to arrive. The council chambers have room for about 200 people in the gallery. There were over 100 that were scheduled to speak, and they all had a reserved seat. And then somebody decided that the door I was standing at, the one that they had directed me to when I first came in, the door I'd been standing at for over 2 hours, that was the door for registered speakers. And the general public was supposed to use some other door. And I'd say I wish that someone had told me about that like 2 hours earlier. They didn't, so I didn't get in. I just headed home once the doors were closed. But I'm told I was one of the lucky ones, because the meeting, again, was well over 2 hours long. 2 hours of mostly anti-abortion protesters whining about how evil abortion is and how much God is on their side. You'll see for yourself. Well, actually, not so much. The protesters who spoke before the council were so redundant and so off topic. They didn't talk about the noise ordinance. They talked about how bad abortion was and how much God loved them. I didn't leave very many of them in the edit because he just all said the same thing over and over again. So take what you hear in the half hour that I've got from the city council. Take what you hear from them and multiply it by 10 or so, maybe 15. They all said the same thing. I also distilled what the pro-choice people had to say, but the video is actually going to look a little lopsided in their favor. And when, at least numerically, it was the other way around. The end of the video will have the council members' comments and their vote. And, spoiler, it passed 8-3. That was preordained. I'm pretty sure no votes were decided or changed based on any of the comments. I'll especially like, and I'll point out in advance, the comment from one of the council members. He asked the city staff if they knew how the ordinances in any of the other cities that they used to model this one. They modeled this ordinance on a bunch of other cities. And he asked how well those ordinances were working in those cities. And the staff will say, they're working pretty well. That's why we modeled this one. And then the council member will say, okay, but I'm voting against it anyway. All right. So now it's a half hour. Let's go to Charlotte and watch the city council. Again, mostly what we'll see at the beginning, we'll see the mayor introduce the session, then people's comments, and then the city council comments. And here we go, I think. Yeah, here we go.
As I said, we have over 100 speakers. So each speaker will have 1 minute to speak. I'm going to ask the committee chair that recommended this to the full council to summarize the item that's on the agenda, and then we will start with the beginning of our public hearing. Following that public hearing, the council will discuss the item and make a decision on what to do next. So I recognize Dr. Ssshhharlotte is the chair of the committee. Dr. Ssshhharlotte?
Thank you, Mayor. The newly formed Neighborhood Development Committee had multiple meetings in December, February, March, and then eventually took action to propose, to recommend the proposed changes you have before you tonight in April, and then the council heard a briefing on that in early June. Part of the committee work included a lot of community engagement opportunities, survey, research on best practices in various cities, and an assessment of challenges experienced particularly here in Charlotte. This is a comprehensive look at our ordinance as it relates to construction, as it relates to some sound enforcement, CMPD enforcement. We are almost doubling and in certain cases quadrupling our fines for enforcement. We're changing the way we measure sound from a dBA to a dBc sound measurement to help capture more bass components, and then also proposing a sound buffer around medical facilities, schools, and places of worship. We know that the buffer zones are the contentious issue here. Later in the evening, I will propose a small amendment to the proposed ordinance that decreases the proposed buffer from 200 feet to 150 feet. I want folks to know that this is not a physical barrier. This is not a physical buffer. This will not stop folks from walking on sidewalks. This does not prevent anyone from speaking to any stranger or any person or friend. This does not prevent anybody from passing out any literature. This does not prevent anyone from saying anything that they want to say. This is just an amplified sound buffer within these various places that are listed, and those places, medical facilities, schools, and places of worship must also post their hours of operations, and also must post signage.
So we're going to start with Brooke Adams.
Hi, I'm Brooke Adams, and I'm from Charlotte. This new ordinance is a fair balancing of the rights of those who wish to exercise free speech and the rights of those who are seeking a peaceful and healthy environment. You're going to hear a lot about abortion tonight, but we're not here to debate about abortion. The City Council is responsible for protecting the health and well-being of all of its citizens, even those who are seeking or providing health care procedures that some folks don't approve of. In the context of medical facilities, excessive noise causes more than just hearing loss. It has a negative effect on healing and can result in elevated heart rates and blood pressure. Excessive noise also has a negative effect on the medical staff, increasing stress, burnout, and making it harder for them to concentrate or to hear their patients. The proposed ordinance will help us share the city.
Thank you.
I'm Daniel Parks. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina here. Proverbs 31 verses 8 and 9 says, "Open your mouth for the speechless and the cause of all who are appointed to die. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy." God's word commands that we not only love our neighbors as ourselves, but also speak for those who can't speak for themselves. 150 to 200
Okay, so again, I'll point out he's not talking about the ordinance at all. He's talking
the
about
people that you see here tonight in the
religion.
blue shirts aren't here for selfish reasons. We're here to be a voice for the voiceless. Abortion will come to an end in our nation, but as long as it remains a scourge in our city, God's people will stand against it in prayer and outreach.
Good evening. I'm Justin Reeder. I live here in Charlotte. I'm a business owner, a family man, and the founder of Love Life. Above all of this, I'm a follower of King Jesus. Arguments like my body, my choice, all this comes down to, do we believe these are children we are talking about? At conception, that child has its very own unique DNA. At 12 weeks, the child is fully developed with fingers, toes, eyes, and everything else. If these are children, then you will be voting in support of the choice to kill children.
Mr. Bean.
Scientifically speaking, this isn't about noise. Buffer zones only exist as a way to shut down free speech.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Haley. I'm a resident of Charlotte, and I'm here for two reasons tonight. The first is to express my support for the proposed changes to the noise ordinance. This is not a vote about abortion. It's not about religious beliefs. It's about the right for all of our citizens in this city to feel safe and to access health care, places of worship, and education free of harassment, abuse, intimidation, and fear.
My name is Dr. Matthew Harrison. I'm a board-certified family practice physician, a hospitalist at 6 area hospitals, and an assistant professor for the Campbell School of Osteopathic Medicine. I have 3 points to share with you tonight. 1, as a member of the faith community and the medical community, I want to apologize for not offering options better than abortion.
I'm Pastor Leon Threed. I pastor here in Charlotte for over 31 years, Christian Faith Center. And I just want to encourage you to please table, put aside this ordinance, because all of you certainly know, as well as all of the people present, that this is really about squelching, limiting the free speech of those who are pro-life.
My name is Kelsey McLean, and I work with a Woman's Choice of Charlotte. We are an abortion care provider here in the Charlotte area that encounters problems with the abusive levels of sound that are used to protest our facility. The reality is I had an abortion in 2010, and there were protesters in front of my clinic. They weren't allowed to use amplification, yet somehow I was able to figure out their message, what they wanted to say, and that they were hostile to my choice when I walked in. There was no need for amplification for me to understand their message. Their freedom of speech was heard loud and clear. What we are hoping for is the passing of common sense rules that will make sure that that sound level cannot reach inside the facility.
My name is Jill Coward, and I am the State Director for Concerned Women for America. What you're asking us to do tonight is not to intervene when a child or mother is in harm's way.
Who's next?
I have Diana Travis, yes.
Okay, I'm Diana Travis.
I know who you are.
For those of you who have not actually been out to see for yourselves, I want you to hear part of a rant that we clocked at 105 decibels. Brooke will be doing that. This is 75 decibels. This is... Okay, now I'm going to do it at 85 decibels. All right. And now, what it was actually at was 105 decibels.
So I'll point out that the actual volume you're hearing is pretty irrelevant. I compress my sound. It probably all sounds about the same to you as listening to the video or the audio.
I'm Cheryl Chandler, and I've lived in Charlotte for 36 years, and I've been involved in pro-life sidewalk ministry here for 30 years. I know of over 2,000 children and their moms and dads who have been saved from abortion by our sidewalk efforts. In 88,
and still nothing, saying nothing about the ordinance.
Our speech to a 24 by 24 inch sign. We sued the city to get that ordinance changed. And by the way, the city lost, and their attorneys thought it was just fine when it was in place. And it was found to be unconstitutional, and so will this buffer.
She is making a point there.
Reich, Matthews, North Carolina. Please imagine, if you would, your 6-year-old child or grandchild is sitting in his school classroom and outside his window there are protesters yelling on amplified sound. They yell to the children, "Get out of there! Your teacher is teaching you evil! You will go to hell!" Now imagine you're sitting in church, and again protesters with amplified sound are yelling into your sanctuary. "Get out of there! Save yourself from hell! You are following the wrong path. You need to follow my God." The protesters yelling these messages believe in what they are saying and think if they convey their message very loudly, people will listen and maybe come to agree with them. I would think the majority of us would view this as emotional harassment. This is why Charlotte needs a noise ordinance for schools, medical facilities, and religious facilities. The First Amendment grants free speech, but it is not absolute. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say free speech means amplified speech. Please vote for the noise ordinance. Thank you.
My name is Reverend Istok Umek, and I'm a Charlotte resident. It's hard to believe that claims that Charlotte is against free speech, since you will hear people who don't live or work in Charlotte speak in front of the City Council. Since this is about amplification and noise, our current ordinance allows amplified sound at 75 decibels or 10 feet. We have measured sound in excess of 105 decibels. Fact is, current noise ordinance doesn't work as the protesters exercise their free speech and intensity over 1,000 times greater than allowed until the police shows up. Then the volume is turned off.
My name is Erin Healy, and I work at a local abortion clinic here in Charlotte. At my place of work, I regularly have to significantly raise my voice in order to be heard while speaking with patients. Patients, in turn, are unnecessarily stressed by the pervading sounds of shouting protesters, and this poses a credible risk to both their emotional and physical health. This ordinance takes no issue with freedom of speech, but rather with the volume of noise with which this freedom is exercised.
I'm Eric Pierce. I'm from Charlotte. The issue here tonight is not the content of their speech, it's the volume. Booming their opinion at 110 decibels is forcing people to listen, even if you're not interested in that stranger's opinion. That's exactly what they use the amplification for. They don't want anyone to have a choice to ignore them.
My name is Amber Smith. I'm a citizen of Charlotte. I had cancer while I was in college. I'm now healthy and well, but I cannot even begin to fathom what my experience in health would have been like if I had to go through the situation and experience that I've seen many of the patients in the clinics in Charlotte go through.
I'm Bruce Moody, born and raised in Charlotte, now living in Fort Mill. I'm an escort at a family health care facility in Charlotte where abortions are performed. One morning I noticed a woman sitting in her car who looked visibly distressed. A protester was up on an 8-foot ladder, yelling at this woman over an extremely loud amplified speaker. The protester was literally screaming at the top of his lungs at an ear-splitting volume that she had other choices besides an abortion and that she would certainly be going to hell if she proceeded with her choice. But you see, this woman was already in hell. She told me that she had recently been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer and that the only other thing she could do to survive was to start chemotherapy immediately, which would kill the fetus growing inside of her body. The last thing she needed was to be verbally assaulted by a man, yelling at her through a very loud sound system, someone she didn't know, and who certainly did not know her or her situation. What this man was doing was not counseling or ministering. He was simply verbally abusing a vulnerable person seeking health care. Please pass this ordinance.
Good evening. My name is Madeline Kren. I am a resident of Charlotte. I'm also a clinic escort at the clinic on La Trobe. We are not in any way trying to infringe on anyone's First Amendment rights. It's our most important right as Americans. All that we are asking is that there is a buffer zone created so that maybe they are not amplifying their message so close to our clinic. Many women do feel a bit unsafe as they walk in.
I'm Hope Robertson. I live in Charlotte. I believe that people seeking medical help, knowledge, solace, and refuge during crises of body, mind, or soul should be able to seek out aid at medical facilities, schools, houses of worship, unimpeded. I've been personally harangued and assaulted at women's health care clinics as a supporter and a patient. The anti-choice people we face regularly aggressively perpetrate physical and emotional harm. Flip Benham not only has a long history of assault charges, but also has a court date for assaulting me at the clinic. I can tell you as a cardiac patient that when the noise level is severe, I feel the reverberation on my skin, in my skull, and feel my heart rate and blood pressure increase.
Linda Mooney, Clover, South Carolina. I think the first point that I'd like to make is that this is not just about amplified sound. If you look at section 1B3, number 1 is to produce amplified sound. Number 2 is any unreasonably loud sound. The greatest noise issue in the city of Charlotte is airport noise. 121,000 complaints about it last year.
My name is Kristen Clark, and as a former patient at Eastover on Latrobe, I can tell you firsthand how hard it is to be dealing with a pretty horrible personal tragedy and be in your session and have it interrupted by screaming voice, disembodied loudspeaker, down the street, murderers, killing babies, hell.
I'm Suzanne Adams, and I'd like to urge you to vote for the amendments to the noise ordinance. Research on noise and aggression shows that noise increases incidents of aggression. Volunteers and workers at the medical clinics see the correlation of noise and aggression on the days when the amplified sound flagrantly exceeds the rules.
My name is Cindy Thompson, and I am a fifth-generation Charlotte citizen, and I'm here to represent the Charlotte chapter of the National Organization for Women. John Autry tried to do this 10 years ago, and we had the Dallas ordinance as a guide, and the council wouldn't touch it because of the abortion issue. And so, first of all, I want to thank every one of you for being brave enough to do this. It's a crazy night, I know.
Well, I'm Scott Heldreth. I just want to talk to you about the chilling effect this is going to have on religious speech. In the sound ordinance, we hear a lot about amplification, which in our current state right now has rules and regulations that are measurable. But in this next one, you're saying that it's unreasonable sound. And who dictates that? Who determines that? There will be people who will be put in jail for this, because we've heard of these men standing on ladders and preaching. They're not going to stop speaking the gospel at these places. We do not need to criminalize the pastors and leaders and women who are going to speak in the city. We need to keep with the ordinance the way it is, a measurable sound.
I'm Alex Healy. I'm from Charlotte. The protesters claim that the noise ordinance will violate their right to free speech based on the content of their speech. This is not true. They are not being censored, merely prevented from harming others. If patients are bombarded with the sound of a voice outside so loud that it rattles the windows, they cannot hear their doctors and companions. The level of tension in the room spikes. The calming atmosphere of the clinic is destroyed, threatening their well-being and ability to recover.
I am Nicole Ash. I am part of the local reproductive rights group Charlotte for Choice. We strongly support free speech, and those who have heard me on the sidewalk can attest that I exercise that right fully. We do not like or agree with the methods or messages of anti-abortion groups, but we do believe that they have the right to hold those views and express them. Restricting amplified sound does not hinder the right to free speech. Protesters can still call patients and volunteers murderers. They can still call us consorts of Satan. They can still call me a Jezebel. They will not be silenced. Further regulation of amplified sound, however, will have an immediate impact on employees and patients' sense of general well-being. Constant loud noise pollution causes immense stress and leads to anxiety and depression. Whether it is classical music or Bible verses being amplified, it makes no difference.
I'm Gina Navarrete. I'm Charlotte. I'm co-president of Charlotte Women's March. If you're familiar with our organization, you know that we hold free speech sacred, but we are aware that free speech doesn't mean free speech at any cost. We have volunteers at the clinics, and I'm here to tell you that the noise levels at the clinics are a significant problem. 2 months ago, I was giving a TV interview. It was midweek, so there weren't many protesters, but the noise level was so high that we had to move almost 3 blocks down so we could conduct the interview.
My name is Mary Fiorello, and I'm from Charlotte. I volunteer as an observer at the clinic on Latrobe, and I measure the sound with a sound meter. On the days that protesters secure a sound permit, I have seen up to 3 large portable speakers which have been positioned up to at least 9 feet on tripods, each within 15 feet of the next, all set up on the sidewalk in front and directed at the healthcare clinic. These speakers project loudly and clearly straight to the front of the doors of the clinic, throughout the parking lot, and up the hill to the residents and businesses above. On days the sound permit has been secured by Cities for Life or Love Life Charlotte, the 75 decibel limit is always exceeded. Every time I've been on Latrobe taking readings, I have photo evidence of readings exceeding 90 decibels. Some days the projections are so loud the businesses at Aberdeen Place have stated that their customers calling in can clearly hear what is being said over the phone. Police monitor the sound, but a game is played whereby the volume is decreased on one of the speakers that is being actively monitored.
My name is Sue Duchemois. I'm from Charlotte. In Charlotte, proselytizers amplify their words loud enough to invade the spaces where citizens are conducting business or receiving services. Thus, they can't simply walk away. That's why the city has noise ordinances. But the current ordinances don't work. When the police are not there, they do anything they want. When the police are present, they play cat and mouse. They up the level, down the level.
My name is Candace Todd, and I'm a resident of Huntersville. I am here tonight in support of the sound ordinance because I am a volunteer at the Latrobe Clinic. I have served both as an escort and a defender for approximately a year. In 1791, when our founding fathers put the First Amendment into law, they probably weren't considering amplified sound.
I think we've understood now the messages from the community, and now it's time for us to have our discussion and debate. The first thing I want to do is ask the city attorney, wherever he went, to address the question that we had about the clarity around amplified sound and other noises.
The issue was raised, does this just prohibit amplified sound, or does it prohibit other noises within the buffer zones? And the answer is it does both. It prohibits amplified sound, but also prohibits other sounds, whether they're amplified or not, that are unreasonably loud and disturbing. And that's actually borrowed from provision that's already in the ordinance and has been in there for a number of decades that prohibits unreasonably loud and disturbing noise. That's a standard that you find in a lot of noise ordinances.
The first person I have to speak is Ms. Ssshhharlotte.
The update to the noise ordinance does not conflict with the First Amendment, but rather ask that both sides are peaceful in their protest. With that, I'll be supporting the update to the noise ordinance.
Mr. Driggs?
I've made my position on this pretty clear. I do regret that women approaching the clinic in a difficult situation are subjected to distress. And I don't personally approve of the use of overloud noise to try and heighten that distress. However, we do have to realize that any attempt to address the situation at Latrobe is going to lead to a public abortion and First Amendment debate. While me may be talking about sound, everybody else is thinking about something else. The information that was developed, data and otherwise, in support did not actually point to the conclusion that we needed to adopt this ordinance. Tonight, for example, I tallied roughly 3/4 of the people who are here speaking against it. I'm not convinced that the proposed changes will actually improve the situation at Latrobe. And in fact, it could lead to an escalation there. Do we really need to make Charlotte a battleground in yet another national controversy? At the same time, I do believe that people who are concerned about abortion are not mere troublemakers. I am therefore unable to support these changes and hope that City Council will defer any action on medical facilities while we look for a better solution through a more transparent process.
Mr. Winston?
There was one speaker who asked, is a sound ordinance, is it really an important topic for a growing city? And the truth is simply yes. When it comes to free speech, look, I am an adamant champion and defender of the First Amendment. The way I found myself here on council was challenging the limits of what I saw freedom of speech, which resulted at one point in time in my arrest. We were very careful and confident to create an ordinance that was researched and had legal precedent. We are presenting something to the city that will hold up to the pretense of constitutionality.
Mr. Bakari?
The city still has thousands without power tonight and thousands impacted by airport noise. Yet we've spent hours tonight on this noise ordinance. 24,000 units is the crisis of affordable housing we face. Yet we've spent over a dozen hours in committee on this noise ordinance. While I will vote no, I fear we have already unnecessarily stirred up the hornet's nest once again.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're not here to regulate religion. We're not here to regulate morality. We're here to keep the peace in the city and to assure quality of life in a city that's growing very quickly. And I'll say that because I represent the city of Charlotte. I will point out that 61% of the speakers opposed to this ordinance tonight aren't from Charlotte. So,
Mr. Phipps?
I guess I'm conflicted by this vote tonight. I thought that we were going to be looking at the noise ordinance as a whole, the entertainment districts is probably one of the biggest contributors to noise pollution in the city, but yet we've deferred that review for about, I would say, a couple of years, because that's how long it's going to take for this 2040 comprehensive plan to travel through its process. But it seems like we want to go right now with the noise that's being produced on Latrobe. So I ask, as a point of reference, as we sit at the dais here, how far is 200 feet from where we're sitting?
150.
We are sitting here behind microphones and amplified sound of our own. Have we ever asked the question of other cities that have implemented this buffer zone? How has it improved their situation and enforcement?
We have talked to several cities that have adopted noise buffers, prohibitions on amplified sound, and all of the ones that we spoke to reported that they don't have any noise problems now with the developments they protect, schools, medical facilities, and so forth. And some of them were very adamant that they've been very beneficial regulations for their communities and that they have a significant impact in protecting schools and other developments from significant amounts of noise.
I appreciate the response, but at the current time, I'm not going to be able to support the ordinance as it stands now.
All right, Dr. Harlow?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm glad we're going to put this to a vote tonight, and that we're not seeing our positions on council and seeing policies that come before us as being too hard to do nothing about. So I'm glad we're going to take some action tonight on this. As it relates to the issue of abortion, this is not in any way to attack someone's First Amendment rights, to go after someone's right to free speech, to say what you want to say, to spread a message that you want to spread. This is about protecting quality of life. This is about safety for anyone who is choosing to seek any type of medical attention at any clinics, medical facilities. This, I believe, is a good comprehensive approach and some proposed comprehensive changes to our noise ordinance. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we adopt the proposed changes to this noise ordinance with one amendment to reduce the noise buffer zone from 200 feet to 150 feet.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? There no further discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Let's raise our hands on this one. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. 4,
so it passed 8-3.
7, 8. All opposed? 1, 2, 3. All right.
Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, the ayes have it.
To all of you, I want to say thank you for the participation. And I certainly hope that you understand how seriously we took this effort. This is something that has been going on more than 1 year and more than about a lot of things. But thank you for spending your time and expressing your opinion. I always say that we need to start with something, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll fix it the next time. Thank you very much.
The cheers are from the pro-choice folks, because the anti-abortion folks, well, they were not happy with the outcome. They're happy with everything they said and everything they went through, but they're not happy with the outcome. And I am kind of glad I didn't have to sit through all that. I got to drive home and got to bed at a reasonable hour, but I did have to sit through it all on video to edit this segment, so I paid my dues here. If for some reason you want to see the whole meeting, what everyone has to say all the way through, I will put a link to it on the Triangle Talk Show website, which is not too hard to remember, triangletalkshow.com. Episode 63, Ssshhharlotte. Yes, I shushed a whole city. It's the power of podcasting. I'll also have a PDF of the actual ordinance as amended. That was kind of hard to find. The city's website, at least as I record this tonight, still has the old ordinance, but I was persistent and I found it. As far as I know, nobody has ginned up a court challenge for this yet. Everybody expects one. That may delay the October 1st start date. We will see. I think I can predict that the pro-choice groups and city councils that may lean in the pro-choice direction, they're all going to be watching carefully to see what happens in court and what happens on the street. And so will I. And so that is it for this episode of the Triangle Talk Show, episode 63. It's about choice. Charlotte, July 6th, 2019. If you like the show, tell everybody that you know, or at least everybody who won't think poorly of you for recommending a program like this. You might want to hide it from your mom and dad, or at least your crazy uncle who watches Fox News all day. I am Gary Pierce. I am your Choice Pro. Getting set to kill the YouTube link, stare directly into the camera, and say, over and out.